Good evening, bienvenidos. No soy tu chica típica de la iglesia. Good evening to all of the members of Not Your Average Church Girl, a part of our upper room, and all of our followers. Wow. We have had an amazing time all month discussing so you want to be married and stay married. I'm really excited because I've received a lot of great feedback from different women just sharing how they have been able to glean from all of those who have shared over the past few weeks. And so I'm grateful for that. If this is your first time tuning in, Not Your Average Church Girl is filled with transparency, accountability, y amor, transparency, accountability, and the love of Christ. And so we were founded July 22nd, 2017 in Denver, Colorado. And today I have someone that I actually met in Colorado Springs, Colorado, who was a blessing to me as well as the church that we both served at. And so without further ado, I'm going to add Sister Lewis. Woo woo!
Mhm. Hey, hey,
Hey girl,
Christine.
hey, thank you so much for
Hey.
being here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, this is going to be
Yeah.
so good, y'all. Okay. Sister Lewis is an amazing cook.
Mhm.
She was always helping the singles, cooking food, cooking for the church, helping with events. She's amazing. Okay. I say when I retire at like 45, I'm going to have her come make all my meals and do
Okay.
all my meal prep. Okay. I'm going
Call
to have
me
to do
up.
that. Listen, I am. But thank you so much for being here today and just taking out your time.
Mhm.
As you know, Not Your Average Church Girl started off when I lived in Colorado, all the way in 2017. And initially, it was a ministry to support single women. And since then, it has developed, and we have women who are married, widow, single, engaged, all a part of our ministry. And so the
Mhm.
Lord showed me that we just had to look beyond just being single because all of our principles really touch all women, regardless of age, regardless of race, and all of that.
All right.
So tonight, when you're talking, I'm going to ask questions as a married woman, but also as a woman who wasn't married at one time, because you have a lot of wealth of knowledge. So first, I'm just going to have you just introduce yourself and just talk about you, and then I'll jump into my questions.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. I'm Tuwanda Lewis, aka Sister Lewis. That know me. Um, I am a military retiree. Currently working for Prudential Financial right now. I did do about 6.5 years of stay at home, and I like to call it like a butler to my husband and my daughter, and then got back into the workforce. So I'm doing that now. I've finally figured out my balance, and it's something that I really enjoy. I've learned how to put on my wife hat, my mom hat, my work hat, and just the me chill hat. Um, so I am in a really good space right now.
That's so awesome. I love this. Okay, so tell us about your love journey. I want to hear that so we get the full details before we start like really diving into our questions.
Okay, okay. Love journey. It's been a journey. It definitely has. Because you think that you have in your mind what you're looking for, how it has to be, this package that it has to be in. And I the more I thought that, the more I got away from it, because that's not how love works. It doesn't come in a package. It hits you when you're least expected, and you just kind of go with it. You design, I guess, what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
and how you want it to work. You start to design that without even knowing it. I can remember when I was dating my husband, I asked him a question. We were having such a good time, and we were dating, and I was like, "Wait, do you believe in God?" Wait, because we haven't talked about that yet. Like we
Yeah.
haven't. When is that coming up? And I was like, "Wait, do you believe in God?" Because that would have been like a okay. That's one part of the design. I was like, "Okay, this is not non-negotiable."
Right.
So, in that journey, you think, well, I think it goes in seasons. So you think you want one set of things, and then as you get older, they may change, or you may have to adjust to it. But along the way, if if God is that thread, that center cord, um, it can be amazing,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely amazing.
I love it. So how did you meet your husband?
Oh, so we I was a student in a military college, right? And
Mm.
he was an instructor. So he had come through the door, And I was like, where he been? Like, what? I done seen all y'all. Where y'all been hiding
That is
him? And I was just like,
funny.
oh, okay.
That
And
is
it was,
funny.
and I was a student, so I couldn't be like, oh,
Right.
trying to
Uh-huh.
approach him or anything. But I had to do a presentation, and and he was the grader of my presentation. So I did the presentation, and you either get a go or no go.
Okay.
And the presentation was about adding standardized or interval times to drop your kids off to daycare
Okay.
because daycare isn't open at 4 in the morning. So my
Right.
pitch was, if we stagger the timelines, we can drop them off at different times and it's suitable to the whole household. And he failed me. He was like, no go. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, we're gonna have to talk about this because that's a good idea. I'm like, that's a good idea. We're gonna have to talk about this. But he failed me so that I could do it, that I would have to do it again so that he could spend more time with me. I was just like, oh, I didn't know that at first. I only got that afterwards. But um, and at this academy, at this military academy, he was an instructor, and then I was just back from theater. I had just redeployed back from Iraq, and they wanted instructors. They wanted people to become instructors that had just come from war,
Mhm.
so that we can get the fresh and latest things off the press.
Mhm.
So they recruited me to become an instructor there, and I accepted it. I didn't want to, but it was the best thing. I accepted it, and then I came back, and we ended up working together. And so I was like on one side of the college, he was on another side of the college, but he would always come and see me.
Mhm.
And one of my co instructors was like, he's sweet on you, right? And I'm like, no, he's just trying to make sure. He's just trying to make sure I know it. He's trying to make sure I'm squared away.
Right.
Because he was a senior instructor, so he knew it. He had it down, and he would come check on me and make sure that I knew it and make sure I was like dressed right, dressed, locked in, and people were like, "Well, she's like better than you. Like she has it down."
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I think I had to go away. Something happened to my dad. I had to go away, and he ended up seeing me when I was getting ready to leave, and he was like, "Give me your number so I can talk to you on the way there." I had to drive all the way to Miami, and he was just like,
Wow.
"Give me your number," and I'm like, "That's not how you ask somebody number." And he's like, "Girl, give me your number. Stop playing." And I was like, "Okay." I was like,
Give me your
"Oh,
number
okay. That's
now.
not how you." Yeah, and I gave him my number, and he ended up talking to me like 7, 8 hours all the way to Miami. And then when I
Wow.
got there, he was like, "Okay, you there? You safe?" And got off the phone. I was like, "That's different." And then we started from there. Like he was teaching me, and then he was like, The more I hang out with you, the more we hang out, the more we like each other."
Mhm.
Um, and that's where we begin to have those different conversations. Like, okay, I'm feeling you too, and I'm like, but we haven't talked about God. Like we've talked about
Yeah.
everything else but God. So once we got that conversation on the table, we trained together, we grew together, we hung out, and then we were just um, maybe I can't remember, maybe like a year and a half, year and 3 quarters in, he was like, "I'm gonna ask you to marry me." I'm like, "Well, you're not supposed to tell people you ask them. You're just supposed to ask them, So he had proposed to like one of our first dates, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this dude is serious." And
Mhm.
I was like, "Well, we gotta go meet my dad." I'm very traditional. Like
Uh-huh.
we gotta meet my dad. We gotta let him know. And the first thing my dad was is like, "Are y'all shacking?" I was just like, "Oh Lord, here we go with these questions." And I was just like, "Well." Okay. He's like, it's like almost halfway being pregnant. He's like, you either pregnant or you're not. You're not a little pregnant. You're not a little shacking. I was just
Right.
like, yeah, but we intend to. He's like, yeah, I don't know about
Uh-huh.
your intentions, but
Right.
shacking still shacking. And I was just like,
Right.
okay, dad.
Your dad's old
So
school.
he's
Okay,
old school,
Jackie. You was shacking.
straight up old school, straight. And he was side eyeing too, like, hmm.
Uh-huh.
When John first met him, I mean, that dad thing, shake your hand and let you know that this still my daughter, and I'm just
Right.
okay. So we did all of that, um, and we kind of just designed what works for us. We kind of designed our love story,
Mhm.
not knowing. We didn't sit down and say, "Well, this is going to be our love story." It just kind of unfolded into what it is now, with a lot of prayer and a lot of doing it God's way. You know,
Yeah.
we tried our way, and we was just like, it's probably best to do it God's way because He's the one that designed this. So let's try it.
Right.
Let's try to do it His way. So we decided, to do that, and with bumps and bruises along the way, we
I love
15
this.
years. This will be year 16 this year.
16 years.
Yes,
That's a
yes,
long time.
yes,
I love it.
yes.
I love this. I love this. Okay. So I appreciate your transparency about the shacking because, we all
Oh,
haven't been perfect. I love this.
oh
My
well,
question to I love this. My question to you is if there was any women in our ministry or just watching this live currently and they are desiring to be married, you went through like all these different, parts of your journey. And so I'm curious to ask you, what advice would you give us as single women who are apart, watching us tonight that desire marriage? How could we better, grow in this
Mhm.
time? What could we do to prepare, in your opinion?
Well, I would say, um, the first thing I would say is do it God's way. God
Mm-hmm.
has He has specific um, instructions for men. For husbands, He has specific instruction for wives, and I would say research those instructions that God have for men, for you as a wife, to see this is the route that I should be going as far as a wife is concerned. That would be the first thing. Do it God's way. The second I would say is you have to design your relationship, your marriage. You have to design it for work for you and your spouse. You may not have the traditional marriage or the traditional roles where the husband works and the wife is at home. Both may be working. Both, may be cooking. Both may be cleaning. It's a lot of people say you got to come in 50-50. It's no, it's 110, 110, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all day, every day. So
Mm-hmm.
it when we get dressed up and we go out, or we're attending things, you see the end part of work. you know that whole day you're praying, you're doing things together, and you're constantly working at it to get it to where you want it. It can't be your mom's marriage, it can't be
Mm-hmm.
your friend's marriage, it can't be grandma, how grandma did it. You should you should you should design it how it works for you. At
Mm-hmm.
some point, I work 19 hours a day, so my husband was at home, with the kids. He was cooking, he was cleaning. I was just going to work, coming home, sleep, going to work, coming home, sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the tables turned to where he was gone 3 and 4 months at a time, a year at a time, I did everything. I cooked,
Yeah.
I cleaned, I did the kids. So I think if you do it God's way, and then you design it to what works for you in your marriage, um, those things are paramount. You've got to always be praying.
Mm-hmm.
uh, you always got to be walking together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in all things. Not like you can't do things on your own, but when there are decisions that concern the family, you should be in one accord. You should
Yeah.
be walking in the same step. So when those things are are at the forefront, and of course communication, because you may be thinking one thing, he may be thinking another. Wires get crossed. You should always be able to come back, reset, and be like, oh no, I meant this, or oh no, you got half of it, this is the other half. So the
Mm-hmm.
communication, you should always be working on yourself. What do I need to fix? How can I be a better person? Because if you're not willing to give 100%, share, and be selfless, do it God's way, always be learning. It's That's what it's all about. You're always learning, because seasons change. You get older. You're interacting with different things. You're learning new things. So as you're participating in these new things, then it becomes another chapter. Hey, I didn't know this. For example, like ministry. You know, Ministry is ministry. You're doing work for God, but
Mm-hmm.
you still have to come together to say how you're going to do that ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You need the flexibility to be who you are in God. Your husband doesn't give you your identity in God. That comes from God. He just supports you in that identity. So those communication conversations about how you're going to do things, why you're doing things, and what it means to you. That communication has to be there. And if
Mm-hmm.
you, when you're when that communication is there, that work is all day, every day,
Yeah.
all day,
So
every day.
you kind of you said a lot just now. By the way, this is good. Um, do it God's way. First and
Hmm.
foremost, communication is key. I've heard some married people say marriage is hard. I've heard some say marriage is easy. I've heard some say marriage takes work.
Yep.
And so I'm curious from your perspective, which one you think it may be, or all three, a combination of all, or what your thoughts are on that. Because I've interviewed quite a few people, and I've had people say, "Oh, marriage is so hard, it's so hard," and I've had people say,
Mhm.
"Oh, it just takes work," and I've had somebody, "Oh, it's not hard if you're both, selfless." So I'm curious, just
Right.
from your perspective, what you think.
I think at different seasons in the marriage, you're probably gonna go through all of it. Um, and if not, I mean, we're at 16 years, so I can imagine somebody like the Browns at 30,
Yeah.
40 years. You know, you're gonna go through all things. You're gonna go through those things. I think, but love, God and love is that thread. So it's that
Hmm.
thread, and so it may be hard if you're experiencing something together that you've never experienced before. There's no
I see.
blueprint on it. So, for example, when Iana went off to college, that was so hard for me. It wasn't hard for John. Um, so he was kind of like in counsel mode for me. Well, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. Make room for this, make room for that type of thing. That was a struggle. Things like um, things it just depends on the season. So like if you're a young married couple, things like finances or communication or how you guys outlay who's doing what, you know, roles and those type of things may be difficult. If you have a husband that's a tradition that thinks traditional, he's going to be running 100 miles an hour towards traditional roles. But if your life isn't traditional, then that's not going to work. You're going to be bumping heads because you're expecting me to do traditional things, but I'm not a traditional person. So like we need to sit down and talk about this. So
Right.
those type of things. And then if you're not evenly yoked,
Yeah.
that could pose, some friction if you're not easily yoked. Sometimes, one spouse may be browbeating the other. Hey, and that's not for that spouse to do. That's for
Yeah.
God to do.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what season you are in the marriage. I've gone through all of them at different times. We have a blended family, so that was very challenging
Mm.
for us because it's not just you. It's more than it's four parents now instead of two, which may
Yeah.
have all four different parenting styles, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And one thing that we've always been true to is who we are. So if you're in our space, you have to conform to who we are.
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know like, this may sound shocking, but we didn't, BET didn't play in our house. Ayana didn't watch BET.
Wait, remember the Fly Girls? What show was that?
Fly Girls, that
Remember
was
the Fly Girls that would be
in
what's
Living
her name?
Color. That was in
In
Living
Living
Color.
Color. Listen,
Mhm.
so my parents would watch that, right? And I would start dancing like the girls. They said, "Oh, we can turn this off." We
Yeah,
never watched it again.
yeah, yeah.
We never watched it again.
Yeah. So, when we're blending the families and, the other kids come into our space, that's the first thing they turn to. I was like, "Oh, we don't watch BET here." And they're like, "What?" "Oh no, we watching BET." And I'm like, "Oh no, we're not."
Right.
So those things could cause, some friction if you just want to spend time with the kids, you want everybody to have a great time, so you may be a little lenient. But we were always stern or firm on when it came to our beliefs, and when you came into our space, we might let you stay up all night. However,
Right.
you can only watch this, or we put those rules. Our household rules are our household rules. Doesn't matter where the house is.
Right.
So that
That's
could.
good.
And then when you learn and when you have like-minded friends and like-minded people in your circle, then it becomes easier. It becomes because then you have people to bounce it off of. Hey, what should I be concerned about this? Or hey, you may have been a little wrong in this area, or reconsider this. You got friends of like mind to bounce it off of, just to keep
Mm-hmm.
you accountable and to keep you grounded. Because sometimes when we haven't dealt with when we're experiencing new things, we like to open up a book. Google said do it. Well, no, we ain't trying to do it like Google said. We trying to do it like like
Like
God
I
said.
say,
Yeah.
yeah,
What did God say? So
right.
you may
That's
experience them
good.
all.
That's good. So throughout your journey of marriage, it'll be ups and downs, and depending
Hmm.
on where you're at, it may feel a little rough or a little hard, but it's just based upon the challenge that you may be facing. Is what I gathered from that.
Yes, depending on where you are, what's going on. It was a challenge for John to be deployed a year. It
That's a
was a
long
challenge.
time.
That's a challenge, being encouraging and being supportive from afar and raising a kid by yourself, and they're going through new stuff and they're missing you too. And so that was a challenge for us.
Wow.
Hmm.
So for women who may be dating someone who does have children,
Hmm.
what kind of questions do you think that she should be asking the person that she's dating in regards to their children?
I think she should be asking her mate or her potential,
Mm-hmm.
um, what type of parenting style do they have, what their discipline like, um, what's allowed and what's not allowed, and again, um, if you come from your traditions. See, my traditions aren't the same as yours. So if
Mm-hmm.
you come from your traditions versus what works best in your family, those are two different things. I talked in a different setting about culture clash. That's a culture clash. If I'm trying to parent you how I was parent, that's a culture clash. If you're trying to parent how you were, so you have to create. You have to be willing to create your own culture of how you would parent. And so if they're
Mm-hmm.
open to, you know, maybe some people grew up and couldn't ask questions. Well, this is a generation of questions. I
Correct.
mean, so you have to be able to allow that space for questions to be asked, for things to be experienced, and if you can ask your mate, if you can be comfortable enough to talk to your mate about their parenting styles and the things that they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know everything. Some things, a lot of things I learn on the fly because I haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
So um we feel like we always have to have the right answer, or we have to know it. No, you have to learn it, you have to experience it, and you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to make mistakes and know that I'm going to make mistakes. I don't have this all down. So if you can have those conversations and kind of like design what your parenting culture would be like, um I think that is very key, because sometimes we forget that, what if you have a mate that don't want to have kids and you do?
Right. Right.
Those type of conversations have to be had. They
Right.
have to.
So one of the things that I've had conversations with other women about in regards to dating someone with children, how soon you should meet their kids. And because you came from a blended family situation, I'm not saying that you have to give us like, 30 days, 40 days, but in your opinion, what is
Hmm.
maybe too soon or not soon enough?
Oh, I wish I had John on here. I'm telling you, I gave John the blues. I gave that brother the blues. He could
Did
not meet
you?
my kid. He could not be around Ayana until I felt comfortable with him. Because if
Yeah.
this wasn't gonna turn into something worthwhile, you didn't need to meet my kid.
Yeah.
you know. So I was very protective of her. You could not just come to my house. You could not. You no. Mm-mm. You had to
Hmm.
call. You know, most of the stuff was done away from my home,
Yeah.
and when I was ready or felt comfortable with you enough for you to meet her, we met at a neutral place. It wasn't like at my house.
Hmm.
We met at a neutral place. And the same thing with his kids. When we felt comfortable enough to meet the kids, it was at a neutral public place. And it was very easy going. It wasn't a couple of hours. It wasn't too
Hmm.
long. just a brief introduction, maybe something to eat, and then the next time maybe a fun event, and then the next time, adding a little more each time.
I see. I see.
Hmm.
I someone had said to me, I had interviewed them, and they said they don't think someone should meet someone else's kids till they're engaged. I was like, that seemed a little
Yeah,
too
that's
long, because like
right.
you need to you need to
Yeah,
be
that's
sure you've had a base, gain a
yeah, because
relationship, develop a relationship. That, to me, that was too long,
yeah,
but that's just
that's
me.
too. I would say, you when you know that you're interacting and you know the relationship is going to go somewhere other than just dating, you feel like it may go to engagement or something like that. I wouldn't wait that long to introduce the kids, because kids are very important. Piece
Right.
of the kids are part of the relationship too, you know. So if the kids, because Yana was just like, "Who is this?" Yana was looking like, uh, Yana was Yana was 4, and she still was like,
And she was
"Who
like,
is
"Who
this?"
is this?"
Yes, like, "Who is this?" And I was just like, "Oh, okay."
Uh huh.
'Cause so I was like, "All right." So she's paying attention, and then she does know,
Right.
and she wants to know, you know, you, and you have to talk to your kids as well. You can't just, he showed up to her first cheer game. I had to tell her that, hey, you know, John's gonna be showing up to your
Hmm.
first game, so he's gonna be around. How do you feel about that? Yeah, you have to talk. You have to let the kid is smarter than you think. And then she was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna just cheer a little harder."
Aw.
So you gotta be able, you gotta create that environment you get where you accept the fact that you have to have that hard conversation, and you have to include the kids. I think I felt like I don't even remember if it was like 6 months, 5. I don't remember that part. I do remember that he could not just come into my house and meet
Yeah.
and hang out around Ayana. He couldn't do that. We met on neutral spaces,
Hmm.
um, until I felt like I was ready for him to meet her. And then she played a part in how, a little bit here, a little bit there. She played a role in that as well.
I love
Because
it.
like I said, she's been playing a part of, what we do and what we don't do ever since.
Hmm.
She has a say so, you know, all the way down to, I don't want to go to New York for Christmas. Let's go to Canada. And I'm just like, you know, we've been giving you this voice. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think that it's the minute you feel comfortable enough to start slowly, gradually introducing the kids,
Hmm.
because they have their part is important.
Right. Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I'm curious again. So I met you at church, and you and your
Mhm.
husband were very active at our church that we were at in Denver. So I'm just curious, and I'm gonna ask you a two-part. As your
Mhm.
husband excelled in ministry and in the military, how did you find your fit? Because as you grow and you're elevated, your social circle kind of switches, and there's new challenges that arise even with that. So, what
Mhm.
advice or just what experiences do you have in that area?
I would say pace yourself,
Hmm.
and the communication is key, because with new levels of responsibility, as far as like work is concerned, new levels of responsibility caused him to be away more. And I
Mm.
was just like, you're gone and I'm here. Like, I had to, what am I going to do with my time? So then I was like, okay, when you're gone, then I can help out more in the ministry, and then
Mm.
when you're back, then I can balance it back out. You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
when you're gone, then I can be volunteering over here, and then I can be doing this, and then I can be doing that, all for, the ministry. It's a balancing act, because then you can get so far in the ministry, and then you forget, you got on the wife hat too. Hey, hello,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right.
So we have this thing that we make sure that we give each other time first. If it's like paying tithes, as an example, we give each other time first,
Right.
and that way, you and I, we have our time, and then we go. You know,
Uh-huh.
we have our time, and then we go do ministry. We have
Hmm.
our time, and then we go parent, or we go be husband and wife. we do that first, and then work, you know, and it took us a while to find that balance, because you're just going and doing. You know, I remember we were at intercessory prayer at 8 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
on a Sunday. We had to get up at 6:45 to be
Mm-hmm.
there at 8 o'clock. And oh, by the way, we got a 10-year-old. Wait,
Yeah.
she got to get up too.
Right.
So that balance. Okay, you go first, and then I'll come along later.
Yeah.
Hour later to give her more time to sleep. But at first we were waking her up, and I'm like, this is not good for her. You know,
Yeah.
so when you consider the whole pie, you know, you have to look at what's going to work best for the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
So when he would elevate in the military, it would cause him to be away more. When he would elevate in ministry, it would cause us to have to do more. We're there
That's
longer.
so good. And it's so
Yeah,
true.
it's the truth.
It's
Now,
true.
you
Oh
know.
man.
Yes, because you're not doing what you're doing for you. You're doing
Right.
what you're doing for the kingdom ultimately. But if you're supporting the pastor, if you're supporting the women's ministry, if you're supporting the men's ministry, if you're supporting the singles, whatever it is that you're supporting, you're not looking at it as a job. But when you look up and you're like, well, this needs help, that needs help, where can I be helpful for? You may be supporting 5 or 6 ministries just to get something started, or just to get something off the ground. um, and so that has to be balanced as well. If you've been at church at 8 o'clock since 8 o'clock this morning, and it's 3 o'clock, okay, it's time out. Hey, it's time to go. Everything got to stop. It's time to go. you know, we need to recharge too. So you have to. It's a balancing act. You have to keep those things. Sometimes he balances me. Babe,
Uh-huh.
you done said yes to 4 things. You didn't even tell me about it. I'm like, oh man, oh, okay, hang on, let's go back. Or,
Yeah.
and they're just like, hey, they pulling him, hey, and I'm just like, hey, uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Y'all need to
so that,
regroup a conference
yeah.
call before he said yes.
Yes. Sometimes we would. We'd be in the corner like, nah, such and such asked me to do this. Are you okay with that? Yes, okay. But it's gonna cut into 10 minutes of our time. You have to have those conversations, those sidebars, those quick and we have a look that we do like, what's up? Like, yeah,
Right.
I ain't gonna be there. So
Right.
it's the communication, and then the balancing. You have to balance it, because it could be happening so fast, and you'll be saying that I'm doing this in the name of kingdom, and you'll just be busy. If you
Oh,
don't
talk
if you
about
don't
it.
balance
Just
it, you'll just be
busy.
busy. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is effective, and then it's reaching it's for the kingdom, and that it is doing the job that it's set out to do.
You are so thorough. I had other questions and you just kind of went through them as you were talking. This is good.
Thank
We
you.
don't have any questions in the comments, and that usually means because you're thorough. So my question to you: is there anything that we didn't discuss or mention that you would like to just kind of impart to singles and/or married or anyone?
um I would say, when you're single, solidify who you are in Christ, right? You don't want your identity to be wrapped up in what you do. You don't want your identity to be wrapped up in your title. You don't want your identity has to be you have to be who God says you are, not what you do. Those are two different things. And a lot of people think because they're doing this, they're doing that, then it's from no, your identity comes from who God says you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're secure in your identity of who God says you are, then you can perform, or you can manage those areas that he's entrusted you to do them the way he wants you to do them, because now you can hear from him, and now you can discern which way to go. Other than
Mm-hmm.
that, it's you doing what you want to do.
Right.
So if you can get if I was single, I would be trying to, Lord, let me get rid of this pride. Let me deal with this anger.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get this anger under control. Child, my mouth. I would be working on getting those things under control, so that I can be better for when God does my husband does come get me, then we don't have a mouth problem. You
Yeah.
know, we don't have a me problem.
Yeah.
We can work on kingdom things. We can get to kingdom work much faster because now
Mhm.
you're trying to do kingdom work. I mean, you're going to be working on yourself till he come back. You're
Right.
definitely going to be working on yourself. But if you get it under control, know your triggers and things of that nature, you can be better for the kingdom, and you can get kingdom work done much faster,
I
much
like that. You can
faster.
get kingdom work done much faster.
Because you'll be handling it the way that God will be pleasing to God.
Mhm.
You won't have to go back and rebuke yourself and then get rebuked from God and then get rebuked from your girls. Like, nah, Tawanda or Christina, you
Yeah.
know better than that.
I knew
So you
better.
get those things under control. Of course, with in the Word of God, in your Word, and working on yourself. Like all of this is just awesome in what you're doing, working on yourself so that you can be better for someone else. And if you're married, do it God's way. Pray and do it God's way. Like,
Mhm.
you should always be checking in. I check in every year with my husband. It's like a little joke, and I'm like, okay, it's January. You want to be married to me this year? And he's like, girl, girl, and I'm like, oh, I'm serious. Like,
Mhm.
what I need to work on?
I
What
love
did I what
that.
did I what did I
You'll
not
check
do
in.
well this year, or what can I do better? What area can I work on? I want to work
Mhm.
on that. I want to know in January so I can be working on it throughout, the year because I want to
Mhm.
be better. I want to be better. For the kingdom, and then it's going to be better for the marriage. But I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, you want to be married this year? You want to be married to me? Okay, so what I need to work on? You
Right. You
know,
want to be married
we
to me still? It's January. What's
Yes,
going on?
what's going on? I mean, because how did I do last year? We
I
have
love
those check-ins. We have those check-ins, and it's important. It keeps us grounded, and it's like putting a mirror up. He's the mirror. He tells me I'm the measuring stick of if he's a good husband. How am I
it.
doing? And I'm like, bruh, you be trying to give me that change pocket. I want that $100. I want that pocket over there. I don't want. That's when we first met. I'm talking about this over here. So
Uh-huh.
we do that check on. We check on it. We check in with each other. How am I doing? What do I need to change? Kudos to this. He calls it making a deposit. Um, am I making a deposit? Like, you withdrawing a lot. Like, we in the red. You withdrawing, but you
Mm.
need to put something in. What are you putting in? That quality time, that intimacy, those dates in between. And those little things. My love language, your love
Mhm.
language. You're depositing all these things in so that you can enjoy it. So I think as long as if you're single, you're true to your identity. You don't change depending on who you're with, and you're trying to, keep up with this person, that person, and what's popular. You're true to who God says you are. And if you're married, pray and do it God's way. It's
I
that's
love
that's a
that.
must. It's a must.
Praying through God's way. Figure out who you are
Yeah.
now so you
Yes.
can get to kingdom work faster together.
Yes. Yes.
This is good. This is good. Maybe
Yes.
we'll have to have you and your husband come back and do like a little duo.
Okay.
We might
Okay.
have to do that
He's
just
he,
for.
nah, I'm transparent. He's raw. He's raw. He just say it.
And I
I'm gonna
love
have to put the
that. We
filter
love
on.
that over
Yeah.
here because we're
Yeah.
not average. So we love that. But I just want to say thank you again
Oh
for your
yes. Yes.
transparency and just sharing with us. I think a lot of women are going to continue to get a lot from this. It's
Hmm.
important. I hear communication is key. Communication is key. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. And for those of us who are single, we need to really be making sure we're getting rid of that pride, any issues with attitudes, really get it together so that we can be really truly prepared for our husbands.
Yeah, because we're
So,
not average. We're not
mhm,
average.
mhm,
We're
mhm,
extraordinary. So
mhm.
yeah, we
And
gotta
I
get on
liked
that.
how you mentioned having the friends, like having friends that
Yeah.
hold you accountable, that are mature
Yeah.
to be like, Christine, you didn't handle
Yeah.
that so great. So that was good
Yeah.
too.
They'll listen to you and then they'll cut you. Now you was wrong. They let you say it, and then my friends like, now you was all the way wrong. I'm just,
Hmm.
oh, okay. What did
Yeah,
So yeah, have
that's
to.
good. Hmm. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to your birthday weekend month, all of it. Okay, okay, okay. And I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you again for just
Oh, you're
sharing your
welcome.
wealth of knowledge. This was exciting. And we'll probably have you back again.
Okay, I'll be here. I'm here for you. You know it. You
I
know I'm
know.
here for
Oh, I
you.
know. I know. Listen, I know. For our Mother's Day luncheon, I'm like, I wish Sister Lewis was here in New York so she can make all the food. But it's all right. It's all right. Before I
I
end
just need an
everybody,
invitation. I just need an
listen,
invitation.
listen. I'll buy the food and have you come on in with it. It's one last thing I have to do. That would be awesome.
Okay.
I'll keep
Yes.
you posted on that for real.
Okay.
But every time I end my life, I always say, when God tells you to do something, do it. And when you do it, He will provide the way. Thank you guys for tuning in. And again, thank you, Sister Lewis. I
You're
appreciate you.
welcome. You're
Thank
welcome. I
you.
appreciate you too. Bye.
Bye.